Good afternoon. I hereby call this agenda review meeting of the Nacogdoches ISD Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show that a quorum is present, and notice this meeting was legally posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Board members James Montoya is unable to attend. Ms. Montoya is out of the country visiting family. Board member Pastor James Irwin has not arrived yet. Our superintendent, Mr. Fraley, is attending a national superintendent's conference. And I'm going to ask Mr. Morton to fill in his place today. And Mr. Morton, will you join us here at the front?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Morton, for joining us here. Superintendent Fraley, the national conference. Mr. Morton is our deputy superintendent. We'll fill in for him at this time. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that all items on the agenda today are for discussion only. No action item will be taken at this meeting. Please join us in turning off your cell phones to silent mode. Thank you. We will first discuss items from the consent agenda. Board, any questions or comments on the consent agenda of the minutes? We'll move down to the business office reports at this time. Ms. Bomberg, will you start us there at the business office reports?
Good afternoon, President Neal, Deputy Superintendent Martin, board members. Would like to begin with the donations. We don't have any donations over $2,500. But we do have a large amount of donations under $2,500, and you have that list in front of you. Do you have any questions on those donations?
The only comment I will make is thank the community. I'm looking at the convocation that's coming up and the tremendous support from the community in preparing for our students and our staff in returning. So thank the community for these donations.
Next is our investment report. We had to make a large withdrawal out of our investments, $3 million into our general fund. That's normal throughout the year. When we get tax dollars in, then we can invest, and when we're not getting tax dollars in, then we have to pull. Any questions on the investment report?
Board members, any comments or questions? Thank you, Ms. Barber.
All right.
Miscellaneous.
Okay, on I would just like to take questions on the rest of the reports, if you have any questions on those.
Board members, any questions or comments on the miscellaneous items? Office reports.
I would like to thank you for sending the rundown to us on the high school renovation projects from last month. Thank you. Received that and appreciate that information.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Bumper. Purchase over $25,000 you have. Thank you, Ms. Bumper. We'll move down to item number 1, Dale Morton, marketing. And I'm going to ask Mr. Michael Morton to start us there and then present Mike Owens and Dale Marketing LP. So, Mr. Morton, will you share that with us, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. After looking and doing a needs assessment, talking with our campus administrators as well as our teachers, our digital learning department and our technology services department, we realized that our teacher computers are at max age. So we have put together a proposal to purchase teacher PCs and do a 3-year rotation after which. Mr. Owens will explain a little bit further.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Neal, almost said Vice President, Deputy Superintendent Martin, board members. I appreciate your time. So as Mr. Martin said, our PCs, the teacher PCs have been out of date for a few years now. They're 5+ years old, some schools 6 and 7 years old. You've been kind enough to allocate the funds to upgrade those machines. I chose the Dell product because they're reliable. They have the 3-year warranty, next day on-site repair. So if we keep 3 or 4 of them on the shelf, one goes down, we swap it out, they come to our area, they fix it, we put it back on the shelf. The monitors, they will also come with 27-inch monitors, and they gave us a price of $185 a piece on those monitors, which brings our total to $900. I can't math that quick, but it's a little over $900 per unit. And compared to the computers that we've been purchasing in the past, that is comparable in price. They're actually a little bit lower in price, but they no longer offer the installation nor the on-site warranty. So we're coming out way ahead with the 3-year warranty and us installing. So, do you have any questions for me?
How many set are you expecting to receive?
Say again?
How many, the number of computers?
The number of computers is 210 for this year.
It's just exclusively for the teachers or secretaries as well?
Teachers only. No, sir, this is for teachers, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Trying to think of the proper term of the budget, but yeah.
I was looking at some of the specs for those. There's no wireless capacity in these, no cards or anything like that. This is just for hardwired only.
Yes, sir. This is
How
hardwired.
much would it cost to add that, or would that ever be a need to do that?
Well, presently, the teachers they all have drops in their rooms. They're presently hardwired. I could look into it. I couldn't tell you the cost now, but I can find out and
Well,
get back. to
it
you.
could cost just maybe $25 or $50 when they're putting it in, and then it's available. And when we look at if we would switch over, we're prepared. Maybe we don't want to do that with this first time, but we might want to be looking at it the next time. But if it's not very much for whatever would make it wireless,
Yes, sir.
that would be maybe good.
Well, I know
And
that
now-
we can purchase wireless dongles, which are just plug and play. To have the wireless built in would require for them to build these computers instead of them being standard on the shelf.
Okay,
So it would
okay.
delay delivery until past summer.
Okay. So
But it's still
there
an
is
option
there
where-
is a workaround.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I had a second question.
And I
Oh,
interrupted you. I
the
apologize.
filters, what kind of filters are on these computers? That's not dealing with the computer itself, but
No,
that's.
sir. We have the iBoss filter, which sits at the head end, and it does all the content filtering for the entire district.
So that's covered too?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
But no kid can get on their computers and do things, because
No,
these
sir.
are gonna be a lot faster.
Yeah, no, sir. The iBoss filters everything.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. I noticed Ms. Thorne's on page 89 in the board book. Campuses review to receive the new teacher PCs this year, and next year you would, as you mentioned, the other half will receive the PCs, which is a great instructional piece for our teachers and our students. So this is your list for?
Yes, sir. This was phase 1 this year.
Yes, sir.
And then the math works out to right about half, and then next year we'll do the other half, and then moving forward, we'll replace them every 3 years. So they will not be sitting where they're sitting today.
That's great.
These particular PCs are top of the line. They're i7 processors. They have 16 gigs of RAM. I want to say 250 gig hard drive, which everything they save goes to the server anyways. My documents folder is redirected to a server that gets backed up.
Great. Thank you.
I'd just like to say, I've been in several classrooms and have been very disappointed to see those very old computers sitting there
Yes,
on
have
those
I.
teachers' desks. So I want to say thank you for initiating this. I think it is well past due, and our teachers need the appropriate tools and resources in the classroom to operate efficiently. And your plan is to do exactly what I've been soapboxing about for 3 years, and that's get into a rotation, and every 3-year rotation. That's what we do in private business. It only makes sense we do it here, and I just want to say thank you for that, and I appreciate the initiative.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to just echo what Ms. Fitch said, but also ask, how do we make sure that we keep up with this rotation, that we don't forget that in a year we need to do the other half? And then what is your plan to make sure that we don't?
Well, I have a budget the money has been
Okay.
allocated
Okay.
for this purpose only.
For this year?
For
Or
this year,
is it in
for
long term?
next year,
Okay.
and every year moving forward.
Okay.
And to keep up with, it's on me, but yes,
Okay.
it will all be kept up with.
Can I answer part of that question? That's one of the fund balance assignments that we're implementing.
Okay. I just don't want you to be forgotten or overlooked or anything like that.
Yes, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Now, this, when I came in about a year and a half ago, this was
Okay.
my dream then. So, and you folks voted on it and helped it come true, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Board members, any other questions on Dell Marketing?
Good job.
We'll now move now to visual techniques. I'm going to go back to Mr. Moore and ask him to start us there, and then to Mr. Owens.
Board, if you recall, last year we started a district-wide interactive flat panel initiative, which we were able to fund one half of the teacher classrooms with these boards. This year, we're coming back to propose the other half, 197 interactive boards. And I think Mr. Owens has invited Mrs. Christina Shepard, one of our teachers, to do a little bit of a demonstration. I'll hand it over to Mr. Owens.
Yes, sir, thank you. I want to point out that the total budget amount might be a little bit high because we weren't sure how we wanted to mount them at the high school, and Dr. Crespo is working on that. If he decides to mount them on the wall, it's going to be cheaper. So I went with the high bid just to make sure that we had it covered. These are Gen 3 is what they call them. It's the newer panels. We had a few issues with the older panels. They were part PC problem, which is no longer there once we replaced the PCs. And then Aber flew 2 of their engineers out from Singapore to little old Nacogdoches, Texas, to look them over and to fix those issues, which really impressed me as far as the company goes. They fixed quite a few of the issues. I think with the PCs coming in, it will fix them all. This panel is the newer one. They fixed all the issues in it, so the new ones that we buy have no issues whatsoever yet. We have not put them in the field and let the teachers do everything that they do with them, but we will see. So with that, I'd like, Ms. Shepard, would you mind?
First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity, Mr. President, Mr. Martin, board members, everyone else who's here. I'm honored that I got selected. I absolutely love having a flat panel in my room. It's just endless. I've learned so much this year with it, and I am looking forward to learning so much more. And the number one takeaway from having this in a classroom is student engagement. It allows me to actually, if you would, share the pen, and the kids get to come up. I just show them once how to do something, and then I step back, and they do it. And I trust them, and we go over the rules, they know how to be responsible for it. So that's the number one greatest thing for me, is that I get to now have total interaction. And it helps tremendously with discipline, because you have to be responsible, and you have to know how to behave and be respectful. So the kids know that when I have this pen and I start waving it, they know that Ms. Shepard's about to share that pen, and they're like, we're ready to go. So it's an all-around positive aspect of the classroom. So I'll kind of go through my day and show you a few things. I cannot show you everything. of my favorite things to do is to open up the whiteboard, because every morning I do a morning message of some sorts. And of course, me being bilingual, I get to do it in Spanish and English. So I'll just start out the morning for this. I'll just say, today, yada, 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 and we just go through. And then I'll always have a question, some type of question, just depending on whatever. And then that question, they get to talk about it, they get to share, and then I choose someone to come and respond to my question, and then we have a little class discussion, like a morning meeting, if you will. But they like that because then they get to come up and they get to share, and then they get to do the pin. So, and then the beautiful thing about that is, I didn't know how to save these, so every day I opened a new one, and Kirsten came in one day and I said, I don't know how to save these, but I've opened them all up. But the beautiful thing about it is I had my own portfolio, not even realizing it. So it was really neat to go back, and the kids were like, well, what did we do for Christmas? And so I just went through and I was like, look, this is what we wrote during Christmas time, and this is what we did. And so it was really neat because I made my own portfolio and I didn't even do it. It was on accident, but it was really cool. So, sorry if I'm talking too fast. So then when we also, this was a dream come true. I put everything in my Google Drive so that no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I have access to all my files. So then when I realized that Google would give me, where am I? Okay. So when for example, we went to the zoo. So I took my iPad, took all the pictures of the kids at the zoo. So when we came back and we wanted to do the learning experiment, now the whiteboard, the board I have in my room, I had to open this picture up and then open up a whiteboard page. I had to split the screen. But so what we did is we came back, and so we were able to annotate. And so then I was able to say, okay, what is this? It's a peacock. Great. You come write the word peacock. And then talk about all the facts of the peacocks. Okay, so this group had peacocks, each group had their own animals. So as we're scrolling through the pictures, when their animal came up, they got to come up as a group and write down all the facts of what they learned and what was their favorite part about the zoo. So again, I give the pin and I'm back here monitoring everyone, and the kids are the center of attention, no longer me. Because it's not about me, it's about the kids. So again, that was like, oh, amazing. So then they got to write, annotate, and who wasn't going to be engaged? I mean, if you see yourself on the picture, you want to write the best facts. I mean, and it's just motivating them to learn, to learn, to learn. And then, when we get things off of when we search for things off of Google, teachable moment or part of my lesson. So we did polar bears, and we always put, I learned it, remembered it a while ago, you always put 4 kids, because if you just put polar bears, it shows all the killings and the massive things, and we don't want that in the classroom. So we do polar bear for kids. So if I were to do this lesson, I would pull this up, and let's say then now we want to talk about these facts. So then I would still be able to annotate here, and then let's say I made a copy of this for the kids, then as I'm annotating, they're annotating, and then what'll happen, what I do eventually then is, let's take that off. Then I switch to a different part, and now I'm not gonna annotate, they're gonna annotate, and then they're gonna come up and show me what they annotated, why is it important, what did they do. So again, I modeled it, but then I pass the pen, and they're coming up and they're doing it. So it takes, and I have to make so many copies anymore. I just make one per group, so it cuts down on me standing at the copier, because now I'll just pull this up. I'm really looking forward to it this year because I'm gonna have 3rd grade, and all of my students will have Chromebooks. So then now the Chromebooks, they'll do everything in Google Drive. They'll be able to just connect it, pull up their Google Drive, and they'll be able to present the project. And again, I step away, and it's all them. So I'm seriously excited excited about it. If you can't tell. And so I just love it. Any questions?
Ms. Shepherd, could you show the, flip over the PC? And show the capabilities. It also mirrors the PC, which, by the way, that is one of the Dell PCs at the bottom that I will purchase for the teachers.
This is a new one for me.
Input at the bottom. So you can mirror or extend your screen off the PC to the screen, and you still have the capabilities. You can still write on it, you can still save the document. That's a Word document, I brought it as a template. You can mark it up all you want to, and then click save, and you have it. So you can interact well with the PC. YouTube off the PC plays well. With the older PCs, it would not. It was blurry and choppy.
Is it hardlined into the computer, or is it like a?
No, yes, ma'am. It's a video
it-
card in, and then
Okay.
also a USB cable for touch,
Okay,
so that you can still touch.
nice.
So yeah, there are two cables. With the carts, we got 25-foot cables, so they can move them around the room.
So, Mr. Owens, and by the way, 2 words you use, student engagement. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And they have those little ones engaged and the hands-on, the interactive board. Will you be able to, in the 5-year-olds, I know you teach third, and the 5-year-olds are short, will you be able to install it where it's low enough where they can put their hands on it? And
For pre-K and K, first and second,
Yes,
we
sir.
actually have stands that lower and raise.
it's great.
Correct, so last year when I taught kinder, I would, as I'm giving instruction, of course, the board is up, but then when they come to share, I lower the board and yeah, they use it. And then for my kinders that are extra small, we just have a little step stool. But they reach it, and then, I was also able to, I guess after Thanksgiving, I finally gave a little bit more liberty, and I was actually able to use the board as a station, as a rotating station. I would set up something previously already on there that they knew how to work, and so, and they just ran with it. I mean, the kids know more than we do
Yeah, sure.
anyway, about technology, and they just ran with it, and then they would say, Ms. Shepherd, have we learned this? I'm like, okay, great, you know. It was nerve-wracking at first, to let go of the pen, because I didn't want them to break it, but it really can't be broken. I mean, it can be broken, don't get me wrong. But once you teach the kids the responsibility and they learn, it opens up a world of adventure and engagement, which is number one
Yes.
nowadays. So they don't be there, the students aren't bored, they're engaged, they want to, and they're motivated to learn and do great things. So thank you so much.
Mr. Shepherd, thank you. I'm excited about coming to your classroom.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I want to say, I mean, being a former principal, I'm excited about that engagement and those kids. And I know it helps with the classroom management also.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, because I don't usually use the pen very much, so if they see me wave it, I'm usually using it, and this was my cue that I'm about to pick someone, and so when they saw me waving that pen, they knew automatically, ooh, we better get it right. If I hadn't gotten it right before, I need to get it right now. And so it works, and even my more difficult students, they learn to be
Great.
respectful and take care of the board, because, you know, that's just how we do life. And it's also very, very instrumental for me as a bilingual teacher, because I can pull up my Spanish things, or, you know, even my Google Translate, and immediately just have those conversations with the kids in both languages. It's just phenomenal.
Thank you.
Your enthusiasm is exciting. I'm so glad to see
I
that.
love it. I love it. My husband is jealous of me being a teacher, but he'll be all right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you, Ms.
Shepherd.
Shepherd. Thank you very much. You've taken your time in the summer to come and help us out. I appreciate that a lot. I'd like to, real quick closing note, we've used a lot of your time and I appreciate it. If you look on, if you compare page 89 and 92 of the board book, those are the schools that are going to receive the new PCs and will finish out the project with the flat panels. And they're not in the same order, but they coincide. That way, the new flat panels get the new PCs. The ones that have the older panels are working. There's potential for better, but that'll come next year. So I didn't want to leave the new panels with sub-computers, and them have a lot of issues. And that's the choices that I made, which my mind can be changed anytime by anyone.
Good planning,
So,
good planning.
if you have any questions?
Board members, any other comments or questions?
I think my one question would be, and we've seen your replacement plan for the PCs, but this is our second year, so we'll have these district-wide after this. What is the technology replacement plan for these moving forward?
5 years. These
Okay.
come with, as the last ones did, 5-year warranty. The company also threw in a couple of hot swaps for free that
Yep.
we keep here. If one dies, we swap it out,
Yeah.
then go through that long RMA process, so the teacher's not without.
Okay.
And they did the same thing with this bunch here. But yeah, 5-year warranty. In 4 years, I'll start replacing the half that we did last year.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Owens, we appreciate it. Appreciate your commitment. Board, thank you all.
Yes, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
The next item on the agenda, at number 3, Hanneman. Mr. Martin, you want to start us there? And
Thank you, Mr. President. Heinemann, this program is a guided reading for a small group instruction program. Dr. Hill could go into further detail.
Sure. This is the second order. We placed an order earlier in the school year out of federal funds, and I was being very conservative with the order, knowing that we were going to have to come back and purchase additional kits, if you will. Just as a reminder, each kit contains 200 titles. Within those 200 titles, there are 6 copies. So a part of guided reading is where a small group of students, anywhere from 4 to 5 students, are grouped based on their independent reading level. And that's where the teacher has an opportunity to really intervene with them, listen to them read, make any corrections needed. But guided reading is the #1 way to increase students' reading levels and to get them reading faster, and then, of course, on grade level, which is what we're wanting. And so this will just be supplemental to the textbooks that we've already approved to order, if that makes sense.
Board, thank you. I just want to say thank you. You know, I taught several years ago, and and taught guided reading in 5th grade, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It goes back, and I know the importance of it, so thank you for your
You're
work.
welcome. Yes, sir.
Board members, any comments, questions?
What about storage for these materials? Is that taken care of? Do we have it, or do we need to have money to store these things so they're cared for? What would be the lifespan of these things? So how many years?
Great question, and I wish I could give you an exact. I am a true believer in sending books home with students that are actual books. And so, not that we anticipate losing any of these guided readers by any means, but I know that there will be replacements every year for just additional copies of the sets, just books, if that makes sense, not like the sets themselves. They should last us because they will be inventoried and checked out to the campuses and then checked out to individual teachers. So for example, those 200 titles that I was referring to, I see them packaged in probably just a Ziploc bag with all of the supplemental teaching resources that go with that title, and then they'll barcode and checked out via our Destiny Follett library circulation software that we're using, and then the teachers check them out and then return them back in, if that makes sense. So I wish I knew exactly like the lifespan of a library book, but I don't. I probably should, but I don't. This is not something that I anticipate having to replace, every year.
More than 5 years, probably.
Yes, sir, I would hope so.
Well, I read the price for shipping, and then I
It's
did some
ridiculous.
investigation. We're getting a ton of books.
Yes, sir.
We're getting over 2,000 pounds of books, so that's
It's a lot.
that's considerable. If you split it up between all the people that are going to use it, that's why I'm concerned about just not just taking care of them initially, but for long term, and they're not just tossed in a corner or something.
The idea is to house them in the current libraries with our other leveled readers,
Okay,
so that they
okay.
can be checked out there.
All right. So the
Sorry about that.
librarians are going to oversee that. Perfect, got it.
Okay, okay. Board, any other questions or comments on? Thank you, Ms. Dr. Hill.
You're welcome.
We'll go back to Mr. Martin with iStation, number 4.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, iStation is a web-based supplemental reading and instructional program mainly used with our kinder through 8th grade students. Again, Dr. Hill.
So this is one of several different reading programs that we use across the district, but it is one that is the most widespread, covering the grade spans. We have it in both English and Spanish. We typically purchase this every year. It can be used anywhere from just a supplemental resource to even a mainstay intervention. iStation is really good at diagnosing specific areas of need for students, and so that way teachers can more effectively and specifically and intentionally intervene with students.
Board, any questions or comments from Dr. Hill? Thank you, Dr. Hill.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Board, the next item on the agenda is the professional services contracts, and so I'm going to go back to Mr. Morton.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Service provider number one would provide campus leadership and teachers with professional development with backwards design and professional learning communities, as well as many other services. Dr. Hill could elaborate a little bit more on that.
Sure. Once upon a time, we'd had a brief conversation about our back-to-school conference, or what I'm calling the back-to-school conference, on August the 19th and 20th. And I think it was you, President Neal, that asked, how do we keep the conversations going?
Yes.
And rather than it being just kind of a one and done. And so working with this contractor service provider would be a way that we continue on. I did mention that the administration had engaged in a book study called Taking Action, that we will continue the conversation. So it really continues to focus our work, and all of our conversations will be, revolved around, collective capacity, the PLC and the purpose of PLCs, the 4 big questions of PLC. So even today, and Ms. Shepherd was a part of the group today, we're over at the high school. We have ELAR and social studies teachers. And so we're working on curriculum revision and identifying essential standards. And so even this week and last week, working math and science teachers, the vocabulary is the same, the conversations are the same. It's being very focused and very precise.
Especially when our students move in the district from one campus to another, they're getting the same, you have consistency there.
Most definitely. And so when we come on Wednesday to get into the curriculum revision, we are talking about tight and loose systems in an organization. And one of those things is what you're just discussing, is the scope and sequence.
Yes.
And making sure that the what and when is consistent across the district, especially whenever you have multiple campuses that serve the same grade level. So we have the 6 elementaries, we have the 2 middle schools. So making sure that the what and the when is taught within the same time frame, just because of that very reason.
Okay.
And then, of course, the how is definitely one of those loose systems, because we definitely do not want to have a cookie-cutter approach, nor do we want to tell teachers how to teach things. That's where their own individual flavors and creativity and imagination come into play. But it's the what and when, yes, sir.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hill.
You're welcome.
I've seen a lot of, excuse me, it's
go
okay.
ahead.
So
That's right.
I know that a lot of our teachers have, as we've been rolling out PLCs the last couple of years, have been very excited and enthusiastic about them. And I know one of our, one of the things as a board that we said was we wanted to make sure PLCs were available on every campus at every grade level. Can you confirm that is currently the situation? Have we fully rolled out and implemented PLCs, all grade levels, pre-K through 12 at all campuses?
There are collaborative planning opportunities, and that's kind of how I relay them on every campus at every grade level. In some instances, it's a very nice opportunity to where teachers have multiple conference periods in one day, one dedicated to planning.
PLC, correct.
Yes, ma'am. The PLC, and then the other one just for, if it's ARDS or other grade level meetings. And I believe there was one campus this past year that had quote unquote PLCs after school, but I believe their plans for this next year is to have it within the school day.
Within the school. I know that was a big shift for us, I want to say 2 years ago, when we first implemented that in the high school scheduling, and then began to roll it out district-wide. So I kind of wanted to kind of get a feel for where we're at. But as of this year, all teachers will have a designated PLC period.
block of time.
Block
Yes,
of
ma'am.
time.
Yes, ma'am. And even at the high school, I believe they're switching their early release day from Thursday to Wednesday. And so and forgive me, I don't know the exact time, but that time at the end of the day, once those kids have left and the teachers are still on contract, that's their collaborative planning time.
Okay.
This here, last year, I asked a question for just inquire, educate myself. Somehow it was misinterpreted, and someone reported that person, and I got a very pointed email from him why I'm asking. I'm still asking that question to learn. The purpose of a officer plow.
Oh, okay. Going on to number 3.
That's not, yeah. Let us do number 2, and come
Okay,
back to
I'm
your
sorry.
question on number 3. We'll come back to that. There are 3 items in there, Coach, and so this is number 1.
Okay.
And so, the thing I would just say, Dr. Hill, on, as you mentioned, the maturity, as we go along with PLCs, I know at different levels and different campuses, well, that's our target. We want to get there. And some may be at mature level than the others.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And those are some of those systems and/or capacity building, if you will,
Yeah.
is continuing to really understand what's the purpose of a collaborative planning or a PLC. You know, what it looks like, what it shouldn't look like, things
That's
of
right.
that nature. Yes, sir.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other items on question number 1? We'll go to number 2 now with Mr. Morton. There were 3 items on there. So, any others on number 1, PLCs? Okay, Mr. Morton, number 2.
Thank you, Mr. President, Board. The second professional service provider is going to come in and provide guided reading, running record, professional development sessions for our pre-K through 2 teachers, as well as district administrators, and some teacher coaching, as well as walkthroughs. Dr. Hill, if you want to.
Sure. So in order to supplement the guided reading kits, we've got to make sure that our teachers really understand what's the purpose of guided reading, why are we asking them to do it, and then what should it look like, and then how to implement the resources. And so this is an individual that we contracted with this last year, and it was very well received by the teachers that we trained. And, you know, when you go back and you think about the elements of an effective reading instruction program, right? There are about 5 different things: phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension.
Yes.
So those are good, solid reading instruction. Then within that, there's something called Reader's Workshop, which is no more than a framework. And within that, and this kind of goes to, it's all connected, it really is. It kind of goes to our word work. I know in a previous discussion, we had talked about NIHouse, and where does NIHouse fit in? Well, NIHouse fits in definitely in that word work component of balanced literacy and/or reader's workshop. And so, again, guided reading is a part of that. Running records constantly, or not constantly, but you want a good data point on all of your students to determine exactly where they are in their reading maturity, if you will, and then be able to specifically diagnose and/or prescribe the area of deficiency or complication, if you will, so that when I get to the guided reading table, I understand if it's me, if I were the student, exactly where am I tripping up on reading. And so it all actually truly fits together, and I will gladly provide you guys with any of the information that I have regarding kind of where it is that we're heading. But, you know, it's one of our probably unwritten goals is to ensure that all students are reading on grade level
Yes.
by 3rd grade, because you know the research out there is after that is just abysmal if they cannot. And so this is something we as a system have to get very, very tight on, is ensuring that we are teaching our kids how to read. And not just read fast and call words, but we want them to read at such a specific pace, but they also have to comprehend and understand what they're reading.
Dr. Hill, we are encouraged by the direction for the district for our students. This is really exciting.
Thank you.
And the focus is unbelievable, so.
It's
the
going to be hard
consistency.
work, but we have some phenomenal teachers. And I was witness to that last week and even today working, just on my first day of working with the ELAR and the social studies teachers. They are brilliant minds.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Truly they are. So much smarter than I could ever be, for sure,
Thank you.
for sure.
Any other questions on that particular item, number 2? Yeah.
I would just like to express my appreciation for the continued focus on reading and the continued
ma'am.
focus on on getting our kids there and a solid foundation by
Yes,
third
ma'am.
grade, as you just mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
I still go back to probably 3 years ago. I still believe it true today. When we had an assistant principal tell us, we do not have a discipline problem, we have a reading problem in our district. And while we've made great strides on that the last couple of years, we can't just be satisfied with where we're at right now. We've got to keep pushing and getting our kids there. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the support.
Thank you, Ms. Faith. The next, board is not, we'll go to the next item, Mr. Morton, and this, Ms. Fosh.
Yes, professional service provider, number 3 listed, provides consulting to the district with regards to discipline, helps out with our APs and has monthly meetings, sometimes even more frequently than monthly meetings, as well as helps us develop our student code of conduct. We've budgeted for an administrative position to take care of some of these duties in the future, but we have not hired for it as of yet. I think Mr. Fraley has talked about this becoming that position's duties in the future.
I know Mr. Fraley did mention to the board that the focus was to make a transition for this position.
Correct.
He had an assistant principal, maybe, a principal that will be taking on these responsibilities, and we're going through a transition period, and that's his goal, is to bring that in. One of the things, I guess, right now, before school start, is critical that, what is the most critical thing now that this position would help with?
Right now, the student code of conduct
Okay.
would be the most critical thing, as well as meeting with those assistant principals, going through the district matrix with new assistant principals that are hired on to the district.
Yes, sir.
I'm just speaking very clearly. When I ask individual's name, somehow the word travels and misrepresented my questioning. Then I get an email, nasty email, then I respond nasty. So therefore, I'm asking whomever travels those news, specifically say that was information, to know why. Okay?
Mr. Neal, I was
Yes.
just wondering if there's
Please.
any way items 1, 2, and 3 could be divided up into separate things, like 1 and 2 together, because they do focus on reading, and I think those are very obviously they go together, they support each other. But number 3 is kind of different, and I was just wondering if those could be on a separate request for a separate consideration.
And I believe that can be done.
I can make that a separate.
Can we make that,
Yes.
Okay.
can we make that happen?
Absolutely.
And then what I would also kind of like to see is if it's okay if that is moved from consent agenda to discussion, so that it can be discussed.
And it can, and you know, if you want to leave it on consent and pull it that night of consent, you could do that. It's already on the consent agenda, you could pull it that particular night as an item to be considered.
I agree with Ms. Winslow. I think there's enough discussion and concern over it that it would make sense for it to go ahead and be put on the action agenda. I would be supportive of that.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
Number
the,
3 only?
yes, just the third contract agreement.
okay,
We'll put it on action.
okay. Let's do that then. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Moyne, Dr. Hill on that particular one?
I do. Dr. Hill, with regards to moving that to its own separate item, I'm wondering if we have any sort of reports over what has been done by him in the last 12 months. Because I know the reason we asked a year ago was because we wanted to know what support he was providing. And as far as the student code of conduct, is he actually going to be writing that separate from our people who, I mean, do we not have somebody that could assist with that has a background and expertise? I'm just asking, because I know that is very critical, but I also know our leadership that, or to me, seem very capable. And I don't know if it's just needing
Short answer is yes.
resources or if it's needing expertise.
Time.
Okay.
But yes, the short answer is yes. There is someone on staff that can do it. Short answer, yes. Your first question, level of services. Yes, ma'am. I can rattle off some of the things that I know, but if you wanted it in a report form, then I can construct one and
I
and
think
get
that
it
would be
sent.
helpful for us as you
Sure.
make a decision on, I mean, that's a healthy contract
Yes, ma'am.
that we've questioned even a year ago, and personally, if I'm asked about it, I want to be able to answer to it, so I can support, whatever it is that we're doing, and that's the only reason I'm asking.
Yes,
So-
ma'am.
So Dr. Hill and Mr. Moore, if you give it to superintendent, maybe give us a written report that we can have even before the board meeting on Thursday evening, what the services are provided are, and then we can discuss it further at the board meeting.
Yes, we can definitely do that.
Got Ms. Fitch?
If my memory serves correct, we initiated that originally because we were in some, and I'm just gonna bluntly say it, some hot water with the state. And so we needed to spend a little bit of extra time figuring out the new matrix. But once the new matrix was implemented, it was always my understanding that was as far as it would go. Now, fast forward, or back up to last year, when we asked about it, saying, well, wait a minute, I thought we were done because we've got the new matrix in place now, so we should be good. And I think the request was, because he had just arrived and was new on the ground, give me a little bit of time to figure out how I'm going to realign that. So I do feel like that we've had a year process there to figure those questions out and hopefully be able to look at that realignment and what that would look like. So just a little bit of context there as we're looking at this.
I think if my memory is correct, he was issued a 2 years contract, so therefore has a contract, we have to honor his contract, am I correct?
No, sir. He's under a year-to-year professional contract.
Well, and it might even be something that you consider, 6 months or 3 months, or a project of the code of conduct if you need resources, rather than a full year, if you're gonna try to find somebody administratively that can do that, because otherwise you're bound to a contract for 12 months. If you find somebody, then you're still gonna be paying this. That was just another option.
Isn't
idea.
he from Rockport, Texas? Isn't he from out of town?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, board, and what we'll do, we'll have that, if you give it, Mr. Morton,
Yes, sir.
give it Mr. Fraley, and maybe we can give us
Okay.
email us the services that are provided, and then the discussion at the board meeting.
Will do.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
For consideration.
Thank you.
Next item, number 6, are Shaws, and Mr. Morton, you want to start before Ms. Barber talk about the Shaws?
Thank you, Mr. Neal. SHARS is a regularly type program that the district receives its reimbursements from. I'll give it to Ms. Barber, let her go with it.
Thank you, Ms. Barber.
Are you finding this in your board book?
I am not.
It's number 6.
Yeah, it is number 6.
It doesn't.
Right.
Oh, it's not.
I'm just not finding it,
I'm
An
going from
action
the
agenda
on it. into
I'm not either.
It's not opening evidently.
Vantage Point.
we could pull it and,
This is, we have here under these contracts, and it's number 6.
right, but there's nothing in
Nothing
the,
comes up.
It's not in my books.
So would you like to,
we could pull that and bring it next month.
Thank you.
thank you, Ms., thank you. That gives us time to consider.
Did you get that, Holly?
I did get that. Trying to figure out why it's not there.
Board, as we continue now for discussion, action items, the first reading attachment policy update 113, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Morton.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Board. Update 113, as you recall, the administration brought to the board the last month, and the board asked us to go back and revise policy F and F. We did so with consultation with our Kathy London, our TASB representative. We have revised policy F and F, basically back to its original form, or the way it looks today, with the exception of a couple of changes there. Also, policy CI was, we added some additional language in CI that we had asked the board to approve last week as well, to include superintendent or designee to declare surplus equipment. I'll be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you. Board, you've had an opportunity. Are there any questions on this particular item A? Are there any objections to moving this item to the consent agenda? We can move it to consent agenda. Are there any objections to doing that? I hear none, so we'll move it to consent agenda. The next item B, consideration of purchase of real property, parcels number 68128. Mr. Morton, you want to talk with us about that?
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. President. In your folders package, you should have a blue tab.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Anderson has been kind enough to outline in the yellow
Yes, sir.
the property that the district has purchased for the new Emmeline Carpenter School. What this proposed contract is for is the upper orange corner. If you see that on your sheet there, it's about an acre of land that we feel would be great for the district to have to help with a potential deceleration lane. That is going to be our parent drop-off driveway. And so we're proposing to purchase that piece of property.
And this is located on the center highway,
It is located on the St. Augustine
Augustine
Highway.
Highway,
Yes,
excuse me.
sir.
Main
East-
Street.
Main Street,
Main
yes, sir.
Street, that's the word.
Mhm.
Board, any questions on this particular?
We had talked about, do we have a total, if we don't have it today, we could have it for the meeting on
So
Thursday.
acreage.
So we'd have with these two additional, the total acreage that we would own if we pass this.
Yes, sir, Dr. Gorman. We do have a total acreage. Once these properties, if the board approves, are purchased, the district for this Carpenter site would have approximately 24 acres.
This is one, the other part, there's a little triangle part you want to discuss.
Yes, sir, that is the next item on the agenda. C, that triangle, which is outlined in orange, is about 0.25 acres. We are still in negotiations with trying to purchase that piece of property, but recommend to the board that you authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract with that landowner.
And that would really clear it up for us to give us a smooth, give us more space there.
Yes, it gives us more space and square up that property a little bit better.
It will center the road and not make it,
Make it
it'll
dip
make it
around.
better for parking too.
Yes, sir.
If we use that parking along that road.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Board, are there any objections to adding item B and C to consent agenda, since both these items are related to real property? Let's add them to consent agenda. That's all. Board's okay. Thank you. On those two items to consent agenda. Item B is annual review of investment policy, including first reading of revised policy, CDA. Mr. Warren, Mrs. Barber, if you all would.
Mr. President, there's been some changes in the federal law that allow for a little more leeway, I believe, with the investments. Ms. Barber could explain it a little further.
This is a twofold agenda item in that we annually review our investment policy. And in the reviewing of the policy, there are some recommendations on changes to our current local policy, which I would like to go through.
Okay.
So this will be our first reading. Normally, we just have not just one reading because there's no change, but we're proposing some changes. So On page 462, number 10, we are striking through corporate bonds as permitted by government code. We do not, our practice is we have not purchased, and so we are proposing that we just eliminate corporate bonds. On the next page, we are proposing that the individual investments owned for liquidity and maturity, individual investments owned by the district shall not exceed 2 years rather than 1 year. That will allow us some flexibility. That is what we did on the one-time policy revision we did this past year for buying certificates of deposit, where I brought it to you for it to be just 1 year. This is putting it into policy that allows us to buy up to 2-year certificates of deposit. And then on the following page, under funds and strategies, the second paragraph, the sentence says the overall weighted average of the combined portfolio reflecting the specific needs of each fund shall not exceed 1 year. So that's where you look at your investments as a whole, and your investments as a whole, the maturity will not exceed 1 year.
Mrs. Barber, this is just bringing us in line. Are you,
Yes, these bring us in line, and for instance, the next page on collateralization, in the past, we were striking the $100,000. That is, the FDIC increased that actually a couple of years ago. TASB suggested that we don't put an amount in there, but instead reword the wording so that when the FDIC changes, our policy changes with it. All of these have been reviewed by TASB. And that, those are all the changes in the investment policy that we're proposing at this time.
board, do you have any questions or comments?
I have a learning process. Question mine is learning. Outside the superintendent, you are the designee person that reinvest, correct?
It is me and Wendy Fox.
Wendy Fox, okay.
Yes.
What is, it says a PSA, Master Purchaser Agreement. What is that PSA?
Where are you?
I'm
Looking.
not sure. I read it last night, very detailed. And also it said outside of you people, there is some subordinate officials. Who could be the subordinate? Am I
Can
reading
you-
too far? Am I going too far?
I don't know where you're looking, so.
Okay, I'll question then your office then, when I find the
Oh,
information.
okay, thank you.
It's just for my own learning.
Oh. Okay, the investment officers. Let me see, Denise.
Okay. Thank you, Coach, and will you get with Coach a little bit later?
Okay.
Okay. Board, any other comments or questions? Are there any objections to moving this item to the consent agenda?
I don't, as long as the coach gets his,
No, the answer.
You're good with the question?
I'm very comfortable. I just want to learn
Okay,
what
I
that
got
word
you.
means or.
That's good. Thank you. So, Board, we'll move that to consent agenda, Ms. Hall. The next item is E, consideration of voting delegates for the TASB 2018 TASB Delegates Assembly. And I will share with you, Board, in that Texas Association of School Boards and Texas Association of School Administrators Convention, which is coming up in September in the Dallas area. The Delegates Assembly focus on 3 things that's so important. We need to have a representative on there. One, elect TASB leaders, amend TASB bylaws that we do, and also adopt TASB advocacy agenda. So we've asked Dr. Roman to be our representative. He'll be attending the conference. He'll be our delegate, and also Mrs. Winslow will be our alternate delegate. Are you all still okay with?
Yes, yes.
Great.
I'm glad we have an alternate. You never know when there might be an illness or emergency.
Great,
We will be representative,
Thank you.
represented.
thank you. And Dr. Gordon, will get back, maybe a little report for us.
Sure.
Okay. Are there objections to moving this item to the consent agenda? Board, any objections? We'll move this item to the consent agenda. Board, we will not have a closed executive session, but let me ask if you would help me on Thursday evening for invocation and for pledges. We have some volunteers, in the summer we use board members. We have a board member who will do the invocation and one for the pledges.
I'll do
Last-
the pledge.
You do the pledge. Dr. Gorham said he will do the pledge. Anyone will volunteer to do the invocation?
When did we do it?
Okay,
Ms. Winslow will.
was nominated. I'm here. The Reverend's not even here. You could just nominate him. I'm just saying, when if you don't show up, you'll get assigned homework. That's how it works in my world.
Board, I think at this time, there are no other items. Are there any requested future agenda items from the board? Could we have a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, board.
Thank you for
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
searching out.
Thank you, sir.